Welcome to the Consultant's Way podcast, your go-to resource for all things professional services consulting. Brought to you by McMann and Anthony, a strategy consulting firm with over 30 years of experience helping B2B organizations achieve sustainable growth, and the Consultant's Way, the leading comprehensive consultant development program. Hosted by Dean McMann and Anthony Paluska, we share expert insights, firsthand experiences, and conversations with industry leaders on the topics that interest you most.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of their employer, company, or affiliated organizations.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Consultant's Way podcast. You've got Anthony Paluska and Dean McMann, and today we are joined by Dr. Jose Bronet. And Dr. Bronet is the VP of Professional Services of App Dynamics over at Cisco. And Dr. Bronet, we're very excited to have you here. Excited to talk to you a little bit more about a topic that I know you're really passionate about. But before we dive into all of the fun stuff, would you mind providing a bit of a background introduction for the audience?
Of course, Anthony, and thanks a lot, Dean, for having me in your fantastic podcast. So I am kind of very diverse guy when it comes to competences. I started my career as an engineer, a bachelor's degree in computer science, but also transitioned into business side, getting a PhD in business administration. And through these two, I acquired different master's degree in different competences, such as management and leadership in the UK, and also coaching and mentoring. I'm a professional certified coach and mentor and a chartered manager, which is the highest recognition in the UK for leadership and management. And what I do with Cisco and Dynamics is leading a team that is in charge of helping our customers monitor and optimize the digital experience. And what we do in professional services is making sure that our solutions deliver value quickly and consistently.
I think that's great, and I definitely want to talk about your coaching and mentorship. You know how passionate we are about that topic, and how important that is to us and to the audience here. But I know that the big topic that we wanted to spend some time on is around service quality, and obviously incredibly important to the role that you play, and something that you've got lots of experience in. So. Provide us with the high level introduction to that, if you don't mind. Right? How do you define service quality, and why is this a passion point for you?
It is, in fact, because when it comes to understanding how we do what we do the best possible way, what is our mission in professional services, and especially within the SaaS world, on where the revenue stream doesn't come from professional services, it does come from the product. So our mission should be boosting the product revenue, right? So the big question is, are there any framework that can help influence purchase intentionality? Well, actually there are. The first one was in 1988, and it was Premsand that developed a 5-dimension model that worked very well, and it's based on 5 things, which is the tangibles, which is how we look, how people perceive us and our companies, reliability, resilience, assurance, and empathy. 4 years later, Cronin and Taylor developed a model in 1992 that was an extension of that one. The previous one was slow, was heavy, and they developed one that was much simpler. It was called SIMP-PERF. The previous one is called self-quality. So since then, it's been absolutely nothing. The big question is, and this is the why of every single thing that we do in our lives, right? So we have professional services, why we are here. So we want to maximize revenue. So we have these 2 models, and the latest one is from 1992. So the first Microsoft version is from 1995. We didn't even have internet, not even mobile phones. And things have changed significantly. Since then, there is no evolution on any of those models. So what I did in 2024 in my doctoral thesis is bringing a new version of this Cronin and Taylor model, which is called SIMP-PERF. It is a much simpler model that has been proven to be very reliable, that can actually help organizations not just predict the intentionality of customers buying our product and services, but also it can be very useful to understand surgically where to look at and what to improve within your organization just to make sure that you influence this purchase intentionality.
No, it's great, and having a framework to do that. To your point, right? The world needs that, right? We need a mechanism for assessing the intentionality of our customers and the role that we as professional services and services broadly are playing in affecting that. Go back and if you don't mind, take your model and break it down a little bit for us, and dive into a couple of different of the pieces there.
Okay, so the model is think about two components. What is it for and how to use it? And what are the mechanisms that it brings to measure the purchase intentionality of customers, right? So all models from 1988, 1992, and my model from 2024 are based on the very same five things, right? We have tangibles, and this is, as I said, the way we look and the way we are perceived as individuals and as a company. Then we have also reliability, which is what we do for customers that we can do in just one go. So you ask to do something, and then you do it right, and you move into the next one. And then you have responsiveness, and this is super essential. How fast you get back to customers. You might not get back to a customer with a full solution, but how fast you reply with them, how fast you interact with them, how on top of the things you are. Have assurance, and that is pretty much the knowledge that your consultants have not only about your solution, and this is critical what I'm going to say, but it's also about the solutions on the customer side that will interact with your very own solution. And then the very last thing is empathy. So are customers perceiving that they're getting a customized treatment from you? Are they being perceiving that you're treating them as a unique and not as one fits all type of thing? So this is the five dimensions of all models. Now, the way you measure these things is based on surveys. Okay, the original model, 1988, that one had 44 questions. It's
What we couldn't come up with 120? Why is
okay,
only
but this
44?
is the point. There's too many questions, so nobody today is going to spend the time in answering 44 questions. And max is every 2 weeks, right? So the second one reduces 44 questions to 22 questions. Okay, for 1992, it's fine. But would you answer 22 questions? Maybe not.
We get it down to a net promoter score, you know?
Yeah, pretty much, right? So what I did is I added a layer that exploits the ability of use technology so that you have only 5 questions, one per dimension. And there's specific questions tailored for professional services in SaaS companies. And then depending on the answers, you might have one or two or three more for that particular dimension that is with the lowest score.
Kind of an automatic follow-up if you're going in this direction. I like that. I like that.
Exactly. So that model is very fast. It goes in line with the new research that explains the attrition in terms of answering surveys, and it's been demonstrated that anything that goes over 5 minutes, it's just not useful. So surveys are not effective. So this is a new way of measuring service quality in a way that you can compile all of these factors. Every single one has the same weight. Empathy has the same weight as assurance, for example. So you do an average, and that is your purchase intentionality of customers.
And you did this on your doctorate program?
I did it afterwards as a professor. So my doctorate is about effective training and development of professional services in SaaS companies. And then out of that, I realized that service quality is a big part of one of the outcomes of that particular model. And then I did the research as a professor of business administration so that I can understand better service quality and how the old models cannot apply, and what are the improvements we have to make sure that those models are applicable today.
We love what your doctorate was in because, of course, we're the largest trainer of PS people in SaaS companies. So the people are looking into it and investigating it and even getting their doctorate in it. So one of the things early on I wanted to mention that we were also fascinated with you on is bringing coming not from the U.S. originally and being so successful here. We love to see that that we're still the country that, anyone can come here and get a doctorate and do so well. So that, and I hope that you've enjoyed your journey here. So how long have you been in the U.S.?
2 years.
2 years. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
It has been fantastic. You have a fantastic country. Especially Texas. People are so friendly.
Well, as luck would have it, we have 3 Texas residents on this call today.
There you go.
Yeah. So I know you're in Dallas, and you and I are going to get together soon. But I actually met my wife in Dallas, so I have to say good things about Dallas. So, but back to the topic at hand. In your long association and success in professional services, have you had an instance that just reminds you of just I wish it didn't happen, or it still makes me laugh?
Yeah. When I was a consultant in Spain, I was a very junior consultant working for a big company, and I was paired with a senior consultant. It was a lady. I'm not going to be using the name here, of course. And we were working for a bank. And our goal was to install an identity management solution in production. So we tested it in pre-production and we had to do it in product. So we tried once, we failed. Tried twice, failed again. And then we're just running out of options. So ideally, just looking at the documentation, say, hey, just make sure that there is no log files or previous installation files. You just delete everything. Say, okay, let's follow the advice. And then the lady just went into the system again. We're in a bank working with real transactions of customers. And the lady just realized, okay, so I have to delete the log files and the temporary files, which happened to be in /temp. And I was just speaking inside this temporary file because I'm very curious a few minutes back, and I saw real transactions from customers.
Real transactions, live. Let me just get this: live financial transactions in a highly regulated industry. By the way, at that time, the bank might have still been partially owned by the government.
Well, not back then. That was a private entity.
Okay, that's at least we don't have the government, involved.
Yeah, well, 25 years ago. And I remember perfectly how the time slowed down when she just tried just to hit the intro key with the finger. And I myself is like, no. And I just couldn't go fast. Just my voice was just super low pitch. You said the whole thing. And then you just click the intro button.
No, she hit the button. You couldn't stop her.
No, I just couldn't. And then you just hit it. And it was 5 seconds. And I started just to see the buzz of people saying, what the hell has happened? Who did what? I was like, okay, so I'm going to hide her. They will, don't know that lady. I don't work for this company. I'm out of here. And actually, she deleted all transactions that was live, like pending commitment of all customers of that particular bank, which is more than thousands. And it took almost 1 month to recover from that.
Oh my God! Now, was
What
there?
aspect of service quality measurement would you have scored poorly on there?
That's exactly. Which part of the 5 sections is that?
I think we have to find a new sixth section, which is the never do that again in your life section.
So did you keep the contract with them? 2, did she retain her position, and were you able to hide forever from being there?
I never paired with her again. But no, she was around. It was okay. It's okay.
I was on a project once where we were putting new technology in the second floor of what would now be more like a private equity firm, but it was back, when banks did everything, right? It wasn't a bank, but and anyway, the technology was really heavy, and we put it in on a Saturday, and by Monday, it had fallen through the floor.
Oh, wow.
And the bottom floor was the trading floor, and nobody knew it over the Sunday. So we did not retain the contract. Yeah. And like you, I was not the manager. I was just the staff guy. I had no decisions. So when the manure came downhill, and everybody got in trouble, not the staff people, man. I just got assigned to a different project and never looked back. But you would think someone would look at the engineering, right, of the bearing of a floor, putting in like thousands, I mean, tons of technology equipment on the second floor of a really old building in New York, which was I think was in the garment, what originally was the garment district. So yeah, it was just, and I was like my third project. I was like, oh, this business is terrible. I'm not gonna make it.
It's full of adventure.
Yeah, well, better for both of you to learn that lesson through somebody else's mistake rather than your own, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you noticed Jose and I didn't tell the stories when we screwed it up, right? Yeah, those aren't funny. Those are not funny.
It is not funny. Exactly, it's not funny when you screw up.
So, Jose, and do you go by doctor now, or do we still call you Jose?
Yes, depends. I'm not a fan of big titles, so
Yeah, all right.
legally I am, but Jose is fine.
Well, so let's go back to your framework for a moment here, and let's say we're somebody out there listening to you and saying, hey, I need this. I need a framework. I need a simpler way to measure service quality in my organization. How would you propose they think about this? How would you propose they take steps to implement? So, like, how would you look at this? Or what advice would you give?
Probably the first thing to understand is knowing your remote on-site setup. It is not the same when you're delivering remotely compared to when you were delivering on site, and it's very very different. The five dimensions, and I always had a thing behind my mind here. So is it is it the same? Are the dimensions the same? Do they interact with each other the same? So last year, one of my research was precisely about that. So how the different dimensions are interconnected when working on site and working remotely. And I have found counterintuitive findings. In fact, I have found that the quality of service is the same whether you work remotely on site. But how the dimensions are interconnected is totally different. When you're working on site, customers perceive each dimension independently. So if you, for example, look terrible, that's okay. You can still, if you're very technical and you still deliver good quality, you're not going to be penalized. But when you're working remotely, and this is something that blew up my mind completely, there are some dimensions that interconnect a lot with each other, specifically the tangibles. It is more important when you're working remotely compared to when you're working on site because the tangible dimension connects with every single other one and it influences the others. So coming back to your question, what is the advice? So imagine that you're working remotely, right? That is your main thing. What I have seen is that it's very usual to see companies with cameras turned off and with employees not looking at the way they present themselves. Sometimes when I interviewing candidates for a job position, they come with a sweater, with a t-shirt, and I ask them a very simple question. So would you come like this to a face-to-face interview? And they typically say, no, I wouldn't. And then the next question is, why are you lowering your standards when you're working remotely, right? I don't understand this, but it happens. So there's certain dimensions that are really well interconnected. So my advice to these companies is first know your setup, look at my research, measure yourself using my model or the model of 1992. They're pretty much the same, but mine is faster. And then look at what dimensions, especially when you're working remotely, are the most important ones. And if your employees, it's a simple fix. If your employees are not looking nice, they don't have a good microphone. I bought myself a professional microphone just to have any single call because the quality of the voice affects the way your communication goes to the other side. So it has to be clear, especially when it's not your natural language, which happens to be 50% of the people working in IT. But my advice is look at these dimensions and try to make the investment in the ones that are the easiest to fix because it will lift or downgrade the other ones, especially the tangible.
I think it's really great that you brought up and we see this all the time. The intangibles, the how you're perceiving me, how I dress, in my case, how I cut my beautiful hair, is it's so important because I can't be with you and use my personality and my movements and my, your positive or negative aura, if you will. And people show up in, hoodies, and they show up and it's just amazing that they think that because I'm at home, that's okay. And I felt sorry for the leaders of those groups to get people to, and it's symbolic of many challenges we have with professionalism today, right? It's symbolic. But I'm glad you brought that up. If you were going to give everybody just a couple of takeaways, and one, how would they access your
It, it is available. I mean, if you go into my LinkedIn profile, all of my research is there. You can just
Yeah,
go
and I
there and
also want to
go.
encourage people to view your LinkedIn profile just for the artwork. I remember the first time you and I talked, I go, where do you get that stuff? Anyway, give us a couple of takeaways that you would tell someone who's taking over a role like yours about, what are the two or three things to think about?
The first thing to ask yourself is what's your mission, the why of your professional services organization. It cannot be anything different than increasing revenue, whether it's expansions or renewals. So everything you do, and this is something that I really strong, is that do not make decisions based on data, make decisions based on science. So what are the actual models that exist out there that can help you build an organization that boosts your revenue? That's it. And what are the models that you can use to influence that revenue? And you can use mine and you can use different ones if you want, but whatever your choice is, it has to be intentional and conscious. What you do, what you build has to be around revenue, and it cannot be just based on what someone told you or what you believe is the right thing to do. You use science. There's a lot of science you can use.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very good. Well, listen, we really appreciate you join us, Jose, and we're going to have you back, and we're going to do more things together. And we do encourage everybody to go look at your LinkedIn profile and leech out all that great content. Yeah, yeah. I've got Anthony will make fun. I have a varied vocabulary, but leech that out into your own brain, and we just can't thank you that. We had a lot of fun, and I loved your story.
It's been
Yes, we'll have you back to talk coaching and mentorship of professional services as well.
I thought Dr. Jose was just very interesting because he's put a lot of effort, science into ways to get a good feel of your service quality and then ways to affect it. And I particularly like that he's focused on training and development because that's so passionate to us, but also this issue of look and feel and how you present yourself. And that used to be very important in our industry, and maybe it comes and goes like a pendulum.
Right. Well, yeah, and I liked his approach because service quality was very important to him. But the reason I felt like he was coming at it is I want to do a more effective job helping organizations or doing myself this coaching and mentoring of team members. But how do I know how to do that if I don't have an appropriate measurement to know where they need more support? And found the old tools were too cumbersome and therefore ineffective, and so simplified that down so that he or anybody using something like this could isolate on the, all right, how are we being perceived by our customers? How are we driving our value, our strategic value to the overall organization? And what's holding us back? Where are we most underperforming? Because that's the area we need the most coaching, mentorship, support around. So it's a very logical connection, but he was on the topic of service quality because he was just trying to do better at coaching on the right things, it felt like.
Yeah, I like that. And you're right. The early stuff done in this topic was like the early stuff done in project management, where it was more about filling out the forms than effectiveness. It was like done at a university and too far away from reality. But now we're getting more practical. And again, everybody go look at his stuff. It's great.
Yeah, yeah. Check out his LinkedIn. Like you said, he has all of his research and information published on there, and it is free for everybody to borrow from him.
All right, take us home, Anthony.
All right. If everybody liked what you heard today and want more of that, please like, subscribe, follow us on YouTube and your podcast channels. Also check Dean and I out on LinkedIn as well as Dr. Bronet.